Welcome to Live Interactive English. Hello, everyone. I am Mike.
And I'm Kiki. And today we are going to talk about something very interesting.
Very interesting or very terrifying. Blood moons.
What
The moon is turning to blood. This is not good.
It's not?
No, doesn't that mean like the hell is on its way and the devil is coming and horrible things like in scary movies?
It's okay. Relax, Mike. I'm sure it's not.
But it's a blood moon.
I think there's something a little more scientific to it.
Oh, okay. I like science, but it's hard to understand.
It is.
Yeah.
So today we're actually going to talk about when the moon turns red.
But not really.
But not really.
Okay. I feel better now.
But, like you said, sometimes there are certain myths or stories behind why the moon is red, especially in the old days when people don't know. They didn't have science to explain it.
That's right. They have science today, but of course it can be complicated, so people like me still go, blood moon! But really, it just makes for good headlines, and it's a good title for our article, and of course for what we're gonna see happen in the sky in the real world, right up there in space. But don't worry, the moon is still the moon. It's still made of green cheese or whatever the moon is made of. And it won't be covered in blood. In fact, it won't even change color. It will just look like it changes color. And some smart people are gonna come up and explain all that to us. Hopefully, right? Or do we have to explain it?
I think we have to explain it.
Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. No, we definitely are going to be able to explain it to you. And actually, it's not that complicated.
No.
Not really. I mean, if you know how shadows work, if you've ever put your hand up in front of a light and seen a dark space past your hand where the light isn't going, that's a blood moon. It's just a lot cooler. So what do you say we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. On September 8th, people in Taiwan will see a rare event in the sky, a blood moon. This unusual phenomenon has inspired unique beliefs and stories across many cultures. But what is a blood moon, and how does it occur? A blood moon happens during a total lunar eclipse. This is when the Earth moves between the sun and the moon and blocks most of the sunlight from reaching the moon's surface. These events only happen during a full moon, when the whole moon is bright from the sun's light.
Today we are talking about part 1 of our article, When the Moon Turns Red, the myths and meanings of blood moons.
Exactly right, and that's what it looks like. You'll look up at night and suddenly the moon will look red, and we call this a blood moon. Let's find out why. It says on September 8th, people in Taiwan will see a rare event in the sky, a blood moon. Oh, okay, so that's pretty interesting. We already know the date, and we also know that we here in Taiwan will be lucky enough to witness this event happening in the night sky overhead. It is true that they have eclipses and unusual things like this happen all the time, every year, but depending on where you are in the world, you may or may not see them. So we're lucky to see this because it is quite rare. So this is special, it is unusual, it is rare, and that's the right word to use because that is the adjective that talks about things that aren't common or normal or usual, things that you don't see very often, things that are hard to find. A perfect diamond is very rare. For example, that bird is rare and hard to find, so we should take a picture of it and maybe tell some scientists that we saw one because it is so unusual.
That's right. Well, let's get back to our article. This unusual phenomenon has inspired unique beliefs and stories across many cultures. But what is a blood moon and how does it occur? So because this blood moon, it's so rare that a lot of people, especially in the olden days where there was not a lot of science, people couldn't explain it. So there were lots of stories and it was a mystery to a lot of people. And because this phenomenon was so unique. And so we have this word unique. It is an adjective. And basically what it means is to be one of a kind. There's nothing else like it in the world. So even though blood moons occur a lot throughout the years, but every blood moon is unique, right? Every blood moon is different because of the way the light makes the moon look. So a unique person like Mike, there's nobody else in the world like Mike.
Well, that's a good thing.
So here we have an example sentence. Every person has a unique way of thinking.
Ooh, that's very true. Everyone thinks in a slightly different way. Doesn't mean it's strange or weird or unusual. Just, there are a lot of differences in the world. That's right. When we look at the stories that people used to come up with to explain blood moons, the stories, of course, were quite different because these people had different beliefs and different traditions. Well, let's go over to Hanny. She's a very unique lady, and we're going to listen to everything she has to tell us. Then we'll be back to learn more about blood moons.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。这2天的课程主题是 Blood Moon 血月，我们要来了解关于血月的神话与意义。标题里面用到 myth 这个字 myth， 它当名词可以指神话，也可以指普遍而错误的看法或认知，也就是迷思的那些意思。好，那么课文一开始提到说，在9月8日。台湾民众将在天空中看到一个罕见的事件，就是血月。这种不寻常的现象在许多文化中激发了独特的信仰跟故事。那我们先来看单字 rare 是形容罕见的、稀有的 ，unique 则是形容独特的、独一无二的。而补充单字 phenomenon 这个名词它可以指现象。注意它的复数形是把字尾的 on 改成了 a 变成 phenomena。好，那我们继续回到课文中。
All right, we are back. So let's learn some of the basics of what blood moons are, how they happen, and when they happen. Well, it says a blood moon happens during a total lunar eclipse. So this is an event that happens up in space, up in the sky over our heads as the earth and the moon and the sun and everything else is moving around. Occasionally they get into a very unusual position, and that's when we might see something like a total lunar eclipse or even a blood moon. What is a total lunar eclipse? Remember, when you see the word lunar, we're talking about the moon with that word. So a lunar eclipse, is when the Earth moves between the sun and the moon and blocks most of the sunlight from reaching the moon's surface. So in other words, if you have a light, that would be the sun. If you have your hand, that would be the earth. And in that dark area where the light is not shining, imagine the moon is in that position.
Okay, these events only happen during a full moon, when the whole moon is bright from the sun's light.
Oh, okay. I'll say, let's go over to Hanny right now. She has more to tell us, and then we'll be back.
血月发生在月全食期间，这时候地球运行到太阳跟月球之间，那么地球就阻挡了大部分阳光到达月球表面。这些事件只会发生在满月时，那这时候整个月球都被太阳光照亮。好，补充一下 ，lunar eclipse 是指月食，如果在前面加上 total 就可以表达月全食。至于 solar eclipse 是日食，在前面加上 total 就可以表达日全食。另外文中它用到 This is when the earth 怎么样怎么样，表达说这时地球怎么样怎么样。This is when 就是用来说明时间。那我们来介绍这个句型。好，来看看 This is 加上 WH 疑问词加主词加动词，表示这就是的原因、地点、时间、方式或内容。句型当中的 WH 疑问词用来引导名词子句，它接在 be 动词的后面是做主词补语用。我们看2个例句。This is how we met， 这就是我们相遇的方式。This is why he decided to quit， 这就是他决定辞职的原因。好，那接回到课文中。
All right, so that's the first part of the article. We have the basics of what's going on during a total lunar eclipse, which can also lead to a blood moon. Let's go to the second part of the article. We'll read through that, and then we'll be back to talk about it with you guys. Most full moons don't have lunar eclipses because the moon is usually above or below the Earth's shadow. But every now and then, everything aligns perfectly. When this happens, some sunlight still reaches the moon. However, as the light travels through the Earth's atmosphere, the shorter blue and green wavelengths are scattered. Only the longer red wavelengths pass through and reach the moon. As a result, the moon takes on a deep red or orange color. This is where the name blood moon comes from. If you have a full moon at that time, you can get a blood moon. But even that is unusual, as it says, most full moons don't have lunar eclipses because the moon is usually above or below the Earth's shadow. So if the moon is a little bit high, because the moon kind of moves like that through the sky over the year. So if the moon is a little high, well, it will still get some light. If it's a little low, some light will go under the Earth's shadow and still hit the moon. So everything has to kind of line up just exactly right to get the conditions that give us a blood moon. Because of course, shadows can move. So shadows are always moving, but shadows are exactly what we've explained them to be, a dark area where light is being blocked, okay? If you walk down the street, your shadow might be next to you. It's sort of connected to your feet because your feet touch the ground, but then the shadow is that dark area caused by your body blocking the light that falls on the ground. For example, David stood in the shadow to stay cool.
But every now and then, everything aligns perfectly.
Bam.
When this happens, some sunlight still reaches the moon.
Ooh.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, before we get into it, let's go back to Hanny.
课文接着提到，大多数满月并不会有月食，因为月球通常会在地球阴影的上方或下方，但是偶尔一切都会完美的对齐。好 ，every now and then 就是表达偶尔。那么单字 shadow 它当名词表示阴影或者是阴暗处，或者是指背光处、影子等等。那么 align 这个动词则可以表达使成一直线对齐的意思。接话课文中。
Okay, we are back. So when we have a full moon and the Earth is blocking the sun's light, then the moon will be in shadow, but some light will still kind of get around the edges of the Earth. So, however, as the light travels through the Earth's atmosphere, through all that gas and air around the Earth, the gas and air that we breathe, so as the light travels through the Earth's atmosphere, the shorter blue and green wavelengths are scattered in the same way that light kind of bends as it goes through water or things like that. So the blue and green wavelengths, or colors, which is what we see as colors, they're scattered. They kind of shoot off in all sorts of directions. Only the longer red wavelengths pass through and reach the moon. So it's kind of like the Earth is acting as sunglasses, and only certain kinds of light actually get past. That light is colored red. There's how we get a red or blood moon. It all makes sense.
Wow, that's very interesting. Well, here we have the word travel, and it's a verb, and basically it just means to get from one place to another. But usually traveling does mean some sort of a distance. For example, you can travel from your home to your school.
Sure.
You can travel to another country.
Ooh, that's far. Yeah.
So an example sentence is, sound travels faster through metal than through air.
Okay, I can see that. And also we had that verb to scatter. When things scatter, they go from being in a group or in an organized fashion to kind of shooting off in all sorts of different directions. It's in the same way that if you have a handful of beans or peas or balls or something and you just drop them on the ground, they're not all going to land in a nice little group. No, they're going to land and bounce and roll and go all over the place. For example, tiny drops of water scatter the light and make a rainbow. Because of course, light travels in waves, but when it hits water or something like that, it can start to shoot off in all sorts of different directions. It scatters.
All right, so we learned about how the Earth's shadow and I'm still a little bit confused about the colors.
Confusing.
Okay, so I know the green and the blue doesn't travel, it gets blocked.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So just the red gets onto the moon?
That's right. It's kind of the same reason that the sky is blue.
Right, okay.
Because some of those wavelengths get trapped in the atmosphere, scattered, and the light we see on the ground makes it blue.
Okay, so as a result, the moon takes on a deep red or orange color, and this is where the name blood moon comes from.
Okay.
Okay, so that means just the red wavelengths gets onto
Light.
the light, gets onto the moon.
That's right.
Gets reflected onto the moon.
Exactly. But like a rainbow, it's not just pure red. You know, with a rainbow, you have a little bit of orange, a little bit of brown
Kind
or
of
something
ombre.
on either side. So it looks reddish, I guess would be the better word. But yeah, it can be a little orange, a little brown, or red as well. Let's go over to Annie. She will gather everything together and teach us a whole bunch of useful stuff.
刚刚说偶尔会有一切都完美对齐的时候，那这时候仍然会有一些阳光到达月球。不过当光线穿过地球大气层，波长较短的蓝色跟绿色会被散射，只有波长较长的红色能够穿透并到达月球，因此月球就会呈现深红色或是橘色。那这就是血月名称的由来。补充一下 ，wavelength 表示波长。那在聊到颜色的时候 ，Kiki 老师有提到 ombre 是形容有深浅不同色度的。再看到单字 travel 可以用来表达光或声音的传送、传播，也可以表达行进或是旅行的意思。scatter 是动词，表示使分散，在文中它就是指使散射的意思。这边还有一个重点是 take on 的不同意思。好，那来看 take on， 第一个可以表达呈现出、像是具有某种特质或外观，也可以表达采用，像采用某种风格打扮等等。例如 The town takes on a different atmosphere at night， 那个城镇在夜晚时呈现出不同的氛围。第二个可以用 take on 表达承担、从事或者是接下，像接下某个工作啊、任务或角色。例如 Gavin loves to take on new challenges， Gavin 热爱接受新的挑战。那第三个可以用 take on 表达挑战，与什么竞争或是对抗什么什么。例如 The team will take on last year's champion this Saturday， 那支队伍将于本周六迎战去年的冠军。好，那这句话课文中。
All right, guys, that's all the time we have. So we've learned a little bit about blood moons. We know that they are very special.
Right.
We kind of understand the science. I think the students probably have wonderful pictures in the magazine and diagrams with all sorts of science-y explanations. So do check that out. It is a really interesting phenomenon if you're interested in space science. But tomorrow, we will be back with some of the wild stories that people thought up over the years before science to explain this incredible, terrifying event, the blood moon, which isn't terrifying to us anymore.
No.
Because we're armed with knowledge.
Well, we'll see what the myths are like.
I think the myths are terrifying. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye. On September 8th, people in Taiwan will see a rare event in the sky, a blood moon. This unusual phenomenon has inspired unique beliefs and stories across many cultures. But what is a blood moon, and how does it occur? A blood moon happens during a total lunar eclipse. This is when the Earth moves between the sun and the moon and blocks most of the sunlight from reaching the moon's surface. These events only happen during a full moon, when the whole moon is bright from the sun's light. Most full moons don't have lunar eclipses because the moon is usually above or below the Earth's shadow. But every now and then, everything aligns perfectly. When this happens, some sunlight still reaches the moon. However, as the light travels through the Earth's atmosphere, the shorter blue and green wavelengths are scattered. Only the longer red wavelengths pass through and reach the moon. As a result, the moon takes on a deep red or orange color. This is where the name blood moon comes from.
最后，我们来复习今天课文里的单字文法。单字的部分有 rare 形容词，形容罕见的、稀有的。unique 是形容独特的、独一无二的。shadow 当名词表示阴影、阴暗处、背光处，或是指影子。travel 动词，它可以表达光或声音的传送、传播，或是表达行进、旅行。scatter 动词可以表达使分散。那文法的部分呢，我们第一个学到 this is WH 疑问词加主词加动词，表示这就是点点点的原因、地点、时间、方式或内容。句型当中的 WH 疑问词引导名词子句，把它接在 be 动词后面，是当主词补语用。第二个学到了 take on 的不同意思。第一个可以表达呈现出、具有，像是具有某种特质或外观，或是表达采用，像采用某种风格打扮。第二个 take on 可以表达承担、从事，或者是接下，像接下工作、任务或角色。第三个 take on 可以表达挑战，与什么竞争，或者是对抗什么什么。好，那么以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Mining is extracting valuable geological materials and minerals from the earth. And today's location was a very significant mining location in the past. This place is known as Houtong Leisure Park, and I'm excited to share it with you today. Mining was a key industry for the Houtong region in the past. Houtong Mine was one of the area's important mines. In 2013, it was turned into Houtong Leisure Park. The park combines a museum, food, and hands-on experiences. Many of the sites are relics from mining's past. Houtong Mine is now a hands-on experience area. Visitors can ride a train into the tunnel. The Reisan coal mine building was once a mining company's office. Today, it houses a souvenir shop and a museum. Tourists can shop for gifts and take pictures as they try on miner clothes. There are also photos and videos from the miners' lives. If you get the chance, you must give Houtong Leisure Park a visit. With so many hands-on experiences, which means you get to learn by doing it yourself, Houtong Leisure Park is guaranteed to give you an experience that is both educational and entertaining.